One fateful day, Kirk West's grandmother gifted 10-year-old Kirk a plastic brownie camera. Little did she know that the simple gift would set him on his future career path and ignite his passion for photography. As an adult, Kirk went on to capture stunning photographs of bands and famous musicians, and his camera took him around the world.
I'm Kirk West, and a little man from Nevada, Iowa, and I just started to shoot what was important in my life. And at that time, I was building model cars, so I'd take pictures of these little model cars. Then I got older, and I got a little money, and I got myself a little job, and I transferred from taking pictures of my model cars to taking pictures of the car that I bought. I was turning into a hot rod. And I got out of high school in June of '68 and ended up enrolling in Iowa State. Stayed there about 6 weeks and headed to Chicago, where the blues was. I needed to be where Paul Butterfield was. And I got out there in the fall of '68. Butterfield had already left town. He moved to San Francisco. Now, I'd shoot a concert every now and then. You know, first one I ever shot was Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And then shortly thereafter that, I took pictures of a band from Detroit called MC5. I wasn't shooting with anything in mind. I was just, this was the night out. I'm going to take my camera. I had shot some great stuff, and I was feeling good about it, but I hadn't really decided that that was my business. I came back to Chicago in '77 and met some people, young guys that were also shooting music. I got myself a job in a photo lab because they had great equipment. So we learned, and I learned, and they taught me, and I taught them. It was actually one of the most creative environments I've ever been in. That kind of opportunity, and it just kept growing. If I had to shoot, and I did this, shoot for the Strawberry Association of Northern Illinois, you know, because I was making money with my camera. I wasn't a fine art photographer. I was a working photographer, and I wanted to make my living with my camera. Started to really make money and started to being able to actually make money enough to live and wouldn't have to work at a photo lab or wouldn't have to drive a cab. It was more than a passion. It was a need. It was I had to do it. I had to do it.
Kirk cut his teeth shooting on film in a pre-digital era where you wouldn't know what you had until you came home, and developed the role of exposures.
You didn't know what you had until you went home and developed it and proofed it. And then you knew that you had Albert Collins going crazy on camera, you know? And so I got to know quite a few of these musicians that were my heroes, for instance. And the Allman Brothers band was my favorite band. So I got to know them. I got to impact and influence and help guide the thing in my life that was the most important musical experience of my whole life. And I went out as a photographer, and they hired me to be an assistant tour manager in the middle of the tour because the guy that was their tour manager didn't know them, and he thought if he talked loud, he'd get them to move fast. And that doesn't work with old Southern boys. They hired me to talk for him, you know, and said, you can come back out and shoot your pictures later.
For the next 21 years, Kirk was not only the Allman Brothers band official photographer, he was the assistant tour manager. There wasn't any other place in the world he'd rather be.
I've been blessed. I know, you know, I grew up in a town of 3,000 people in the middle of Iowa on the wrong side of the tracks. I've had the privilege to travel the world with musicians that were the pinnacle in my life. The fact that I was able to contribute to the growth of this, because I took a lot of things that the Grateful Dead did and incorporated it. Once I got that job, I said, okay, I can fix this, I can help this, I can push this, and it all worked out. Tour managers work 20 hours a day and musicians play 3 hours a day. So there's it's an imbalance. And so I got off the road, and I had to teach myself how to see again, because tour managers look for trouble. They look for trouble, they anticipate trouble, they put it out before it becomes trouble. You know, you see a guy over here, he got rules and he's about to break them, and I can tell. So, you know, so I lived 20 years of that, And I developed a cynical, suspicious nature to what I was looking at. So when I retired, I put my cameras on the front seat of my car and I drove to Mississippi for 6 weeks, living in Macon, Georgia. And I drove to Mississippi, followed the blues trail that the state of Mississippi has developed a really sophisticated thing, and it's important. I taught myself how to see without suspicion. You know, I'd drive down a old country road and I'd drive by a church that hadn't been painted in 50 years. And I maybe drive 200 yards, I might drive 10 miles. I said, I got to turn around and take that picture. And so I did that, and I started looking differently. Photography, it's amazing what photography brought me in my life. And God bless her, my grandmother, I wish she knew, you know, it's because that little plastic camera totally changed my world. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be an Iowan.